Hi math thinkers. Today we're working on more algebra skills. We're still working on the distributive property, and you need to remember that the distributive property is when you combine multiplying with adding or multiplying with subtraction, and it talks about how you spread it out through the problem. Some other terms that you need to know today include greatest common factor, also known as GCF. Also, we're going to be talking about factoring numbers. And factoring numbers is when you find the factor of a number and you spread that through the problem using the distributive property. And we're also going to sometimes be distributing, which means spreading out numbers. Other times will be, which is another thing for expanding. And sometimes we'll be undistributing numbers, which of course is the opposite, which is squishing them back together. Okay, there's 3 examples I want to go over today. One's for homework and 2 of them are for in class. The first page in class just deals with you understanding and identifying the distributive property, and then later you'll have to apply it, and that gets a little bit more tricky. So here's an example of the first kind of problem you might have. If they give you a problem that is an addition problem, 33 plus 12, they want you to use the greatest common factor and the distributive property to spread it out into a different equation that has the same answer. So what I've done in my example here is I figured out that 33 and 12 have a greatest common factor of 3. So when you think about the factors of 33 and the factors of 12, and you list those all out, the largest one they have in common is 3. They're both divisible by 3. So one problem is 11 times 3 equals 33, using the 3 as the factor, the greatest common factor. The other one is 3 times 4 equals 12. Okay, going back to the original problem, which was 33 times 12, if you think about those 2 multiplication problems we found using the greatest common factor, I wrote those here. And now what you'll be doing is undistributing the 3. The 3 right now is spread out into both problems, and you want to pull it out, take the 2 leftover parts and add those together. So what I've done in the last step here is I took out the 3 from this problem, and I took out the 3 from this problem, and I put it in front. I took the leftovers and put them in parentheses, and I'm going to add those together first. So 11 and 4 go together inside the parenthesis. Once you add 11 plus 4, then you multiply by 3 on the outside, you'll end up with the same answer that you would have if you had done this problem and then added them together. So it's taking the same concepts we were working on yesterday or Friday and putting them kind of the opposite, switching them to the opposite. So you're undistributing numbers by finding the greatest common factor. Okay, so let me do one more example of those with you, a little bit quicker. The next problem is 21 and 35, and with 21 and 35, I thought about all the factors, and when I listed the factors of each one, I found that 7 was the one that they had in common that was the biggest. It is the greatest common factor. I listed the 2 problems. 7 times 3 is 21, and 7 times 5 is 35. Then I spread those out with an addition sign between them. Then I undistributed that 7 by pulling it out and putting it in front of the problem, putting the 2 leftover parts as an addend inside the parenthesis, and now I add this to get 8 and then multiply it by the 7 to get the final answer. Now I also want to remind you that sometimes this multiplication sign will be missing, and a number directly in front of the parenthesis means multiply. You should know that by now. The third problem I want to go over has to do with homework. The third kind of problem with homework already has the digits undistributed, and you have to redistribute them. So it's the opposite of what you're doing in class. So in class, you're undistributing numbers, and in homework, you're distributing the numbers. So you already know how to do this. This is more of what we worked on yesterday. But you take 9 with each of these numbers, each of these add-ins, and separate them into individual parentheses. So 9 times 15, and then 9 times 25. Put those in separate sets of parentheses, put an addition sign between them. Then you solve each parenthesis, as you can see here. And then at the very end, you'll find the final answer to your problem. Now, these are all algebra skills, and what they're setting you up for is to make sure that you can use variables in algebraic problems really effectively. Today we're working on Math Journal pages 328, 328A, and 328B. One of those is just a page to read. You also have math boxes for lesson 9.2, and you may have some old work that you need to work on. You don't need rulers or calculators or anything today. Good luck.